What's going on, guys? Bladezilla here, and today I got another real cool one for you. The Shirogorov Stellar Stellar Touch. So you guys have probably seen me have a Stellar SR or a Sprint Run on the channel now for quite a while that I've used as a comparison. So this overall layout may look pretty familiar to you guys, but with the Sinkevich Touch CCKS Fall 2023 design. So right now they are very, very hot, hard to get. There's only 50 of these, so the level of production of these are the identical amount to a custom division knife. So we're going to talk about this today. Reminder, this is a casual coffee shop style conversation, nothing too crazy, nothing too detailed. Just going to compare some knives and talk about stuff. As well, if you guys want, check out my website. Shout out to bladezilla.ca. As you can see on my phone, which I've got a stack of a couple of these guys in stock. Just added some RJs, etc. So lots of cool stuff. Always changing every day. Bladezilla.ca. We're in Canada, and we do ship down to the States. It's actually super, super easy to ship to the States compared to getting things here. But I have heard from a number of clients who have bought from the site that it's easier to buy from us than it is from other big chains in the States, which is kind of funny. Anyway, bladezilla.ca, but we're not there to talk about that. We're here to talk about this beautiful knife. Ooh, super cool. So let's start things off, get some measurements, take a look at it, talk about it, and see what we think. So right out of the gate, I think it's about a little over 8 inches. That's what she said. 8 1/4, is that about right? Yeah, about 8 1/4. Blade length of 3 5/8, it looks like. Right around there. And handle length, 4 3/8. Something like that. So pretty well proportioned knife in terms of some comparisons. Well, let's just zoom on out here and do a couple. So we've got our F95. You've seen this knife probably just once now, but size-wise, you will have seen it all over the place. We have our Mini Quantum, which is a beautiful, beautiful size comparison in knives. We will take that away and start cycling a couple of these guys out. We've got our Neon, which is a little bit smaller. And remember the angle of the camera. I tried to get it a little different, but it seems to be getting a little better. So our Neon. Also great size comparison. I don't have the 111 that I used to compare it to. Yeah, we can grab Molten, which we have right here, which is the same as the recently released Denim, which should be on the website by now. Yes, it is. What else do we got for you guys? How about this? How about this little baddie? I don't know if I've shown this one yet. Any guesses as to what that is? That is a Shirogorov Hadion custom division in black carbon. Pretty cool. Like I said, I don't think I've had this one on the channel yet, but the milling is what's so cool on this. It's probably the most micro milling they've done. And beautiful example. Super cool knife. S90V. These are the COAs that used to be back in the consecutive counting. So there you go. Little Neon, or Hadion. Which is a carbon front scale Neon. But that's a couple good comparisons there. So we did the F95, we did a Molten. What else would we kind of compare to size-wise? I think we've kind of covered the majority of them. But how about the main one, which is a regular Stellar. This is a M390 production Stellar. And as you can see, this, to me, is what the comparison video today should be all about, because they look very similar, but in a lot of ways they're actually quite different. Like if we just look at this production M390 Stellar, I just put a video out on this maybe a week ago. You can kind of see stonewashed, multi-row bearings, M390. It is an absolute killer knife. Beautifully, beautifully well done. And those are going to be hot for, you know, the next 6 months. I'm going to get as many as I can, and they're going to be moving because it's a beautiful size. Now you take that same configuration and you put the Sinkevich twist to it. So you get a little bit of milling, right? You can see right off the hop, the milling on the handle is different, right? You don't get that second level of I guess angle or bevel. The milling's kind of tiered differently. It's more relaxed, but the profile remains the same, right? Still M390 blade, which is beautiful. Same hand grind, but the pivot hardware is different. So instead of the standard Shirogorov bits that you would get, like on most of the knives, right? The flathead. Let's just get a close up on that so we can kind of talk about this right now. So the normal Shirogorov bits would be this kind of flathead style with down on the other end, you can kind of see this little bit here. The smaller version of the same exact bit. On the other side, there's nothing. They're blanks. And then the clip itself is mounted internally with another version of this screw right here. So same knife overall, but that's the Shirogorov bits, right? So let's move that out of the way. Let's put it back on its cloth here. And let's take a look at these ones. Little bit different, hey? So these are the Sinkevich bits. And what makes this knife so desirable is that it comes with this little tool. Okay? So a couple things on the tool. Maybe I'll line it up like I'm actually knowing what I'm doing here. Sinkevich design. There you go. You can see it right on the tool. Pretty cool, hey? And this thing is a fidget machine. It turns in a couple different spots, and it's just an absolute fidget machine. It's made by Shirogorov, so the same quality and attention to detail is on this tool as their knives. Beautifully done. It's color matched as well in the anodization, and it comes with both of these bits for the knife, and that's the Sinkevich bit. So when we talk Sinkevich, if it's the first time on the channel, I've had a couple Sinkevich knives featured. So I've done the Bio Dark, I've done the Bio Light, I believe, I think, and I've done the Kami, or Kami, as well, right? And I guess now we can kind of add the Sinkevich touch to this kind of setup. And they've done some neons, I believe, in years past. I'm just trying to move these. I'm not looking at the camera and seeing how they actually all fit together, so I apologize. They have done a couple CCKS Sinkevich, I think a touch neon and a touch F95, if I'm not mistaken, which they still utilize these bits. And the beauty is that they come with that cool tool. And they're hard to find, the tool, to work on these knives. So if you're a big Dmitri Sinkevich knife guy, if this ever wants to frickin' focus, you're going to have to find one of these tools at some point. And what I'm trying to get at here is that if we look at, say, the Kami, you know, beautiful knife. I think I've done a video on this by now, but there's that bit, right, that you cannot get away from. So now you have the tool to open this guy up. Okay, so I'll put that one away, and I'll grab maybe just the Bio Light to show the same thing. Beautiful, beautiful collaboration piece. One of my favorites. And as you can kind of see, beautiful milling all over the place. But once again, on the back, if you want to work on this, you need the bits, which is difficult, right? So you got the one on the clip here, and you've got the one on the pivot. And I think that's just a Torx. I can't really tell. I think it's Torx. But as you can see, it's tough to work on these knives. Oh, God, I could just look at this one all day. The action on these is just banana lands. But now that you have this, right, now this guy comes out, they made 50, like I mentioned earlier. I'll put this guy away. You have the tool that you have the ability to, pull this apart, utilize it, and it's at a price point that if you wanted to carry this thing around, you certainly could. It's got a bit of a bronze anodization to it, so it's kind of brown, more brown than the standard production Shiro of the Stellar. If it wants to focus, come on, there we go. It's like finding the pivot. The camera thinks those pivots are eyes. I'm not even joking. I can see it kind of walking around it. So this is more of a stonewash kind of tie color. Overall, beautiful, beautiful knife. This is more of a bronzed kind of, I guess like a matte, like a flat matte kind of color. It's going to show scratches, I think, which is fine, right? But you could, it's still a production piece, so you could carry it, use it. The desirability on this is that it comes with that tool. And that tool, I've seen these trading on the secondary for in excess of $500 already. So, you're getting a tool that's, you're going to add to the collection. And in this case, I brought in one extra for myself for this tool alone, so that now I have the ability to work on my knives. You're probably wondering, hey, what's in the tool? Why don't we actually take a look? If you've gone this far, you're probably still watching, listening to my voice, but the bits won't come out. I think there's one on each end. Or no, maybe you just need to leave it in like that. Is that how it works? No, magnetic. So there's a big magnet in the back there. Hopefully you can see that. And then they are triangular, which means, I think, because they're triangular, I don't think that bit is going to work on a standard tool. Because I don't think they're... Or maybe they will. They are triangular too. Ah, yes! You have no idea how happy that makes me that I can still use the bits on this tool with the bend in it. That's nuts. I didn't think they would work. And you can even see the Sinkevich tool in here, so now I can rebuild this tool. Not that I would ever, but I did not know that. Wow. That is unbelievable. So magnetically attaches in, slip this guy around, and it should be the same, but for the little guy. So let's show these bits. So there you go. There's your two little bits. That's all it takes, man. This is the $500 you have to spend, is in these two bits. Isn't that just something else? But yeah, both magnetic. They have these little caps, which is absolutely awesome. And am I putting these on backwards? I'm just noticing they're actually labeled. See, big and small. A nice little touch, no pun intended. Yes, I am putting them on the wrong end. And they're not reverse threaded or anything, so yep, they can intermix, but may as well put them where they're supposed to go, or at least label them where they where the bits are. Super cool. Another little detail in this tool, if this wants to actually screw back on here. There we go. Look at all the milling on the tool itself. How sick is that? And that milling, if I'm not mistaken, is the same as what's on the Stellar itself. Now would probably be a good time to show that. But that is a beautiful set. Like, yeah, it is. How sick is that, guys? I didn't even really know that. I don't even know what that pattern would be called. But it's almost like a little wave. Hopefully the camera can do a good job of picking that up. It's almost like a little wave. You know, the Sinkevich stuff, they really like to mess around and make some cool designs. So that is an awesome little tool. I am so stoked on that. You have no idea. Super, super stoked to have that tool. But anyway, we're talking about the knife, so let's get back on track. This is, I guess, what I do. You know, I get easily distracted. I've got multiple cases of knives beside me and tools, and oh my god. Anyway, I apologize. Let's look at the knife. Let's compare it. I'm actually really curious if I could blindly test the fit and feel of this bevel and notice a difference in hand, and I do. Right off the hop, I noticed that it feels shallower. It feels like a thinner knife. I don't know if it is or not. I don't think it is. But it gives you the illusion that it feels like a thinner knife. That's interesting. If we compare the two, let's just take a look at the couple quick comparisons. I believe everything's identical, both in the milling side of things on the inside, and as well as just the liner lock, everything. I'm just going to have a quick peek in here off camera. Yeah, it's the same pattern internally that I can tell. I'm not taking these apart, obviously, but as far as I can tell, the internals are milled on the same pattern, which is what I would expect. Blade shape-wise, it wouldn't shock me if they are identical. Both M390, obviously. Same pattern, no polished flats or anything like that. And if you want it to be a baddie, I'm curious if you could just yank this pivot out and mix and match here if you wanted to kind of get creative. I know some people did that on the Bio Light and Bio Dark. They kind of mixed and matched them to make them a little different. They run on multi-row bearings, both of them. I haven't opened this to determine if they're different layout on the bearings, but Sinkevich tends to be, their MRBS, multi-row bearing system, tends to be different. But I haven't determined if that is the case on this. Back spacer as well is not a flat or a stonewash. It's more of a little bit of a nice polish on it, which is nice. Clip's a different color as well. The micro milling on this is just insane. And from a production clip, this is as good as it gets. And I believe they're both in the same regard on the clips. Hopefully you can see that. But the milling's just bananas. Underneath the clip, this is just a gorgeous detail. That same pattern is still evident. That is just incredible. I love that. Typically what Shiro does is they'll do a pivot collar, which will match the back spacer, which will match the clip. So in this case, I believe the clip and the back spacer are the same color, but obviously we don't have a pivot collar, so let's be honest, there's no match there. But we still have kind of it wouldn't shock me if the color of the pivot itself is the same color. I don't know if it is or not. As well, I'm looking at this detail on this. Look at around the circle of the pivot, like the perimeter, how they've actually done a bit of a polish on that. Like they've spun, right? The top of it has a different, almost like a stonewash kind of look to it, where the side it's kind of like a spun polish. It looks great. I never noticed that from the images when the knife sits far back. You don't really see the details too much, but when it's up close, you certainly see the details. I just love the look of this knife. And I also love, if we look on the top here, the pattern where it changes. This area right here on the regular Stellar, when they first launched the first production Stellar, they did a teaser image right here, where the two patterns changed. And I'll show you on this knife what that spot looks like. Right here, where the micromilling goes left to right horizontal, and then goes a little vertical. They did a macro shot right there. And that was their teaser. Now if we look at that location and the design overall, they've kind of kept the same profile. Whereas up top here they did a little concave to the scale. Hopefully you can see that. But there's some concaveness to that scale, and as I roll that around you should be able to see what I'm talking about. Whereas this, now they've increased kind of the overall bevel here, but they've maintained that same kind of spot that changes the milling pattern. So I think this is why in hand this one feels thinner, because when you compare both the top and the bottom, this has a thinner face to it. Okay? Like, do you guys understand that? So the face here that's flat, the top, is a lot thinner than the regular production. See how the top here is much wider? Right? So this is why I think it feels thinner. It wouldn't shock me if it's not at all, but it feels thinner, which is cool. They've maintained, obviously, the Shirogorov logo down in the corner here, on the heel, if you want to call it that, which is awesome. That back spacer is just a work of art, which I love. The lanyard hole, you know, I've always talked about this. You can run a lanyard on this, no problem. Some people really don't like, on the Stellars, how you can see right through them. And that's a design element change, right? Like, they're trying to go for a bigger feel. Because remember, if that is drilled there for a lanyard, the blade is going to be beneath that. So in theory, you could kind of lop that corner off, which would change the whole feel of the handle. But when you have knives like the F95s that are taking that same back spacer, and instead of having a hole drilled through, you're putting that lanyard hole on the tip. I'm trying to do this so I don't bump anything. You can kind of see how you can still access it, which is a nice feature. I like that. Some people, it's a big deal. Other people don't care. I'm kind of in the latter than the former. But you're basically taking a production Stellar. This is kind of, I guess if I were to, I'm not wrapping things up yet. I'm still got half a cup of coffee, so warning. I guess if I were to say my overall description of this knife would be, it's a production piece done at a higher level in detail, with a different feel to it. Ooh, God. Very well done. Now, I'll weigh this. I'll weigh it now. I'm curious more than anything if there's a difference between them. I would doubt it, right? It's the same steel. It's both titanium. But, I've been shocked before in the past. So we'll get a weight on this guy. Let me just move it over here. We'll get a weight on this guy. Okay, any guesses? I'm going to say, 3.6? Okay, there we go. Is that about right? Oh, 4.2. Not even close. Okay, 4.2, 4.3, right in that area. 4.2. And then what was the regular one? Maybe it does feel heavier. No? 4.2, 4.3. So 0.1, it seems to be about 0.1 higher. Consistently. Not really. Okay. Negligible. I would factor that in under the no one cares. So, not a big deal. But nonetheless, the big deal is the fit and finish. I feel like the fit and finish is just a little bit higher between the two. Not at an insane level, but if you just look at the little milling, right, the bit size on the milling's finer. The fit and finish on the hardware is done kind of at a custom division level, I'd say, right? Now, in terms of, you still have the Shirogorov bear on both, which is awesome. Let's flip this guy over and compare. Now, I will say this, the blank on this is also polished on the back. I don't know if I've showed that yet, but let's take a look. So you can kind of see, once again, you've got that polish taking place on the pivot, which is awesome. So just keep that in mind. We still have the machining under the clip on the production, right, which is beautifully done, but remember, it's a coarser kind of fit and finish, whereas this has the higher level of detail on it and a different pattern. Clip is the same, I'd say. I can't see there being anything different there. I do notice as well, if I'm looking underneath, you probably can't see this. If I'm looking underneath the clip, behind the clip, there's no milling on this. On the M390 Stellar Regular. If I'm looking at the Touch, the millwork goes right underneath all the way back. So once again, another level of detail. And remember, this is no slouch. The production is no slouch. But when you're making 50, you can kind of just ratchet things up just that extra little bit. Same thing on the back here. Pattern changes from one to another, which I love. And then as we go back to this guy, same thing. Pattern changes from one to another, but while maintaining the same kind of overall experience. So overall, this one feels thinner in hand because of the beveling, I'd say, more than anything. But it's still a Stellar. It still feels the same. You still feel locked into it, just like the other knife. I've got extra large hands, and you know, jimping-wise, the jimping on this is a joke. There's no point to it. And I've made myself very clear on that. Like if a knife fits your hand, you don't need jimping, but the jimping here is kind of useless. It's not really there for any purpose, other than maybe sticking out a little more than the frame to protect it, as you can kind of see here. But you know, like you'd think it would be kind of up here, right? As you can see the curve in the blade though, where your finger falls and then drops, so not a big deal. The blade itself has a nice kind of point on it. As we see, hopefully camera will pick this up, but it's actually got a nice bevel on the side, on both sides here. And from a side profile perspective, the one thing that I'm kind of curious about, this is going to sound silly, but I'll say it. Anytime I see an outline on the side of the blade here, I almost wonder if at one point they're considering putting a hole there. If I'm guessing, that's what I would, because we've seen the mini Quantums now with the fuller, right? And then they've done some Dama ones that are filled in. This is more of the filled in variety, but it makes you wonder if that's something they consider doing. What would that look like? And there'd be room for it. Huh. Wonder how much that would change the knife. Silly, you know, maybe I'll look back 2 years from now and be like, oh my god, I called it. Or I won't. I always look at this as kind of like a cockpit on like a fighter jet. That's what I see here. I think that looks badass. But for the most part, you've got some nice profiles to it. And then kind of a rolled tip. You can get your finger right up if you want, no problem. Just a really well-made knife. On the inside, we've got full skeletonization in line with the production, as far as I can tell. I couldn't see any obvious differences. But same thing, inset liner lock, beautifully done. Attached internally with one screw, two screw, and a clip, third screw. But hollowed out, skeletonized beautifully well. Hopefully you can see inside there, it looks like big trapezoidal kind of cuts, which is awesome. What else do we got on this bad boy? The clip. I love the clip on the Stellars. They fit so well with this nice roll on the tip here. It fits really well in your hand. You don't get a hot spot from that, which is nicely done. Beautiful, carryable, you know, polished weapon, so to speak. The Stellar's like such a beautiful EDC. I think a lot of people are going to kind of flock towards it in the next 12, 24 months as they come up with more variations of it. But this is, you know what, if you want to get into the Sinkevich world and you want the tool, you know, you get one of these on the cheap and you're essentially getting, you know, it's a limited to 50 knives. You get the tool. I'm curious. I don't think the tools are numbered or anything. I haven't looked. I'm just looking at it right now, kind of off the screen. Yeah, the tools aren't individually numbered. The knives are not individually numbered. They come with a little certificate in a bag, like this. You know, I'll cover it, but there you go. Little CCKS. And it comes with a leather sheath as well. And these cards are numbered for the knife, so just keep that in mind. The leather sheath is right here, which you get this nice pocket for the pen. Not the pen, sorry, the tool. And then this side for the knife. I think that looks sharp. Big stitching, just beautifully handmade, well done. Raw leather. I'm surprised they didn't put like a belt loop on the back. That would have been kind of cool. But I think it looks great. Definitely a photo opportunity for Instagram or something, which I'll probably do, something like this, you know, grab a zone of it here kind of thing. But that's a beautiful knife, you know, something like this. Boom. And you've got your tool, you've got your knife. It's a beautiful combination. I love when Shiro does this kind of stuff because they hold their value. And this is kind of what I'm getting at here. Is you buy a production Stellar, it's, you know, $500 less. Okay? It's beautiful. There's nothing wrong with that knife. M390, stonewash, it's going to last for years. But when you go to sell that knife, you know, there's going to be thousands of them, or hundreds. You know, probably right now there's hundreds, but, you know, when you go to sell it, there'll be lots of them out there. There will only be 50 of these always, which is custom division territory. It might not be at the same level, but it's the same territory. So these, just from the Neon Touch, the F95 Touch, they tend to hold their value, which is really, really interesting. And not only that, people keep the tools and then sell the knife for what the whole bundle tend to cost. I'm obviously not separating mine or anything, but it's just funny to me that people are able to do that. You know, and you get some pretty unique patterns on a production knife, it's different. You know, you take a knife like this to a meetup, you're not going to see another one. Which is so cool. And I just love how, I don't know what it is, I just love the Sinkevich hardware. It just looks so good. Like, I just think it looks so good. I haven't even talked about the detail on this liner, or on the lock bar, but as I roll it, I always like to do this. I like to roll the knife, and you see how that lock bar just pokes itself up? Well, that's a detail I really like, because it just, your finger falls on it so easily. And not only that, if the camera's actually going to see this, there's like detail work here that's through the roof. That's done so well. And you know, you're gonna get one of these at some point. Take a look at them, and you're just gonna be blown away by the detail that's on this. I think that's one of the coolest spots on the knife to look at. Now there was discussion, I think James brought it up, where inside they're changing some configuration on the actual lock bar and how it sets the spacing. I'm not exactly clear on what this is, but there's a pin that you can kind of put, I think it's like on the back spacer pin or something. You can set it inside the lock bar before you close things up, I think, and it spaces things perfectly. So that's, I believe, a first from the production Stellar, or maybe it was the CCKS Stellar onward. I don't know if the first production Stellar had that improvement made to it. I would be curious to know, but I know the anything previous to it doesn't. Now these guys do say MRBS, which I believe it's normally here, but I thought they put it up here on the Stellars. Let me take a look and grab my little light. I was right, yeah, on the top here. So MRBS, it's printed on the inside. I guess I can show it that way. It's probably the easiest for you guys to see, and it's directional. So MRBS. No, sorry, I was right. MRBS, and remember, MRBS is Shirogorov's multi-row bearing system, which is a number of bearings, 2 to 3 typically, in a row, in a line, kind of in a pinwheel pattern around a center, whereas their single row bearings are just a traditional bearing. Balls on a track. Then you get into roller bearings, which are like hot dogs, needle bearings in a circle, and then double row roller bearings, which are orgasmic in general, and I won't ever be able to experience many of those knives. With your help, maybe, but probably not anytime soon. Just the one so far. What else can I talk about with this knife? So I talked about the fit in hand beautifully. I've talked about the lack of jimping, which is not a bad thing because it's just beautifully well done. The bits, obviously, that come on the tool, you need them to open and close this. It is not a stonewash finish. It's more of a bronze kind of finish, which looks amazing. The hardware is done up one more level with that little bevel on it, which is nice. Internally skeletonized to all hell. It's a thinner feeling knife because of the flat is less pronounced, but still feels beautiful in hand. Backspacer and clip match, I think, the hardware. Maybe not. Maybe it's just a clip. Yeah, maybe just a clip and backspacer. I always don't know because I'm looking at this on a little screen as I'm moving things around, trying not to cut myself. Otherwise, it's a beautiful match, beautiful knife. Action's very similar to the production piece, although I will say this one might be broken in a little bit more, or maybe it just had another little bit of love to it. I don't know. No, I'd say they're both the same. It wouldn't shock me if they're the same bearing system, but then again, it also wouldn't surprise me if it's just done a little different. And I'll have to open mine up and provide an update in the comments at some point down the road when I know. Because that's me. That's what I do. And I'm not sorry. Oh, I should also say this. I keep forgetting. I didn't really show this angle, but yeah. Perfectly centered, tight tolerances, aerospace grade tolerances on this guy. I'm glad to see that this one as well is perfectly centered. Some of the Stellaruses, actually most of the Stellaruses are not centered. That was very common with those. I don't know if that's a Damasteel thing or what, but yeah, these are all beautiful. Action's incredible. Oh, what I love here is you take this knife and you can literally park it at 90 degrees and put it anywhere in that line and it's not going to fall. Okay? Shouldn't that be falling shut? How about now? And the difference is you give it a little whoop, and it just falls right down. It's just so crazy. And that's the Shirogorov, how they float home. They feel unbelievable. It's just such a gorgeous knife. I believe I have these on the site. Yeah, they are on the site. I've got several of these available. So they're up. So if you guys are interested, I would act quick. The timing of this video is going to be off from the launch of them, just because I had another knife come out, the Denim Overkill. Kind of came out of the blue for me, and I had to push this guy ahead, but that's okay. But I think this is a beautiful, beautiful knife, and if anyone's interested in it, they're going to get the tool, the whole package with the bits, and it's just going to be a beautifully well-made addition to your collection that I think is going to stand the test of time and hold its value well at a price point for Shiro. An entry-level price point is kind of rare, right? It's a sweet spot, because this is the same price-ish within, $100 of the Denim Overkill, which there's 200 of, which is a beautiful knife, don't get me wrong, beautifully well-made knife. And I love that knife, but it doesn't come with a tool. And there's 200 now of them. So if I'm hedging on which one's going to hold their value, I think this one's going to hold its value very, very well. Sinkevich has such a huge following that people are going to do really they're going to like this knife because of that tool. The Denim Overkill and the Molten Overkills, they're going to hold their, I expect them both to be, 2.4-ish, 2.3, 2.5 thousand US. That's kind of where they're going to be for the next little while. The Denim maybe $100 less, just because there's twice the amount of them. But, I think this right away, 2,000, 2.1, 2.2, that's probably where it's going to stay. Pretty quickly. So anyway, I think I've probably rambled on over half an hour, so I should probably wrap this thing up. I've talked about it You guys have seen it. It's a cool knife. I dig it. The Stellar is one of my all-time faves. And I just think it's a sick knife. And the fact that it comes with this cool tool and a really cool little leather sheath, I think is going to make this one that is going to make a lot of people desire it, and a really good deal for people looking to track one down. I think it's going to be great. So there you guys go. That is your Shirogorov Stellar Touch, which is a Sinkevich design, I suppose, and 2023 fall show. There it is. Appreciate you guys stopping by. Check out the website, bladezilla.ca. Follow me on Instagram. Follow me on TikTok. Send me a DM. Let's chat knives. Or, if the time's right to look at something, let me know. We'll make it work. All right, guys. Have yourselves a great week, and we will see you soon. Peace.